Okay, today we have a guest, a good friend of Joe from the old days in Newfoundland, and Paul Steffler. And then today they're going to talk about a long time ago when they're young, their fun time. And I really admire the days, what they contribute to Newfoundland and St. John's. So when they start, I also have some question to ask. Okay, start.
All right. Well, Paul, you were just saying you arrived in St. John's in 1976?
Yes.
76?
76, yes.
And I arrived in 74, 2 years ahead, almost the same time. So
Yeah.
maybe, like, why you were from Ontario. I was born in Ontario, but I lived in Quebec, in Montreal for quite a few years. So why did two sort of central Canadians move to Newfoundland? There's a question. So why don't you, how did you end up in Newfoundland?
I think after I finished high school in Thornhill, Ontario, I knew I didn't want to stay in Ontario. I just knew I wanted to move away somehow. And going to McGill was the first step. So I got out of Ontario. I was in Montreal for the better part of 4 school years, in Montreal, and really loved it. So that was kind of an eye-opener in terms of a different lifestyle, different culture, different energy, creativity, and kind of a cooperative society where everybody was kind of on the same page on some level. There was this kind of joie de vivre and energy that I found in Montreal that wasn't there in Ontario. Then when I graduated from McGill, I knew I didn't want to go back to Ontario, but I also knew that there really wasn't anything for me in Montreal in terms of building a career. And I just had an invitation to go to St. John's, Newfoundland through my buddy at music school. He was dating a girl from St. John's, Newfoundland, and had been down there, down in St. John's the summer before, and said, "Paul, you got to come down." I was spending the last 3 summers of university on a farm in Antigonish, summer job working on a farm in Antigonish, Nova Scotia. So at the end of the summer of 76, I took a basket lunch, got on the train. There was a train in those days from Antigonish to North Sydney, got on the ferry, and got to Port aux Basques, got on a bus, ended up in St. John's, and Ray and Karen picked me up, and that was it. I never left.
Well, my experience is parallel to yours. I was young and really did not want to stay in central Canada. And I saw I could stay in Montreal if I wanted to. For me, moving from Ottawa to Montreal, exactly like you, it was like the bandwidth of cultural life was much, much wider. And it's even wider now. But for me, relatively, it was a big change. And I was just lapping it up. I was loving it, really enjoying it. And but I didn't feel like there was a future. Also, in the background for me was the sort of the hippie dictum of go back to the land, something more natural. And I had just gotten married to Kathy Ferry, and she wanted to do the same thing, and we both felt like Newfoundland was a really good choice because it had a university. She wanted to study some more. It was a big enough city where there'd be a possibility to find work, but remote enough and near nature, of course. We had never been there, but we knew it had sea, mountains, water, ocean, birds. It sounded fantastic. So we did the same thing with no plan ahead of time, no secure job, nothing. We just moved, and which I think that was part of our generation's behavior to do things like that. But fortunately back then, economically, it was possible.
Yeah.
Our parents had made a world where that was possible to do that. We took advantage of it. So we ended up in Newfoundland in January of 1974. And I can remember coming from the airport and coming over the hill and seeing the vista of downtown. So this is January. And it was not a windy day, and these skinny little pipes of smoke coming out of the chimneys, and the harbor was icy cold, and it was like a foreign country.
Oh, yeah.
In my country.
Yes.
It was a foreign country.
Yes.
And as we both know, after that, the interaction with local culture is like nothing we had ever experienced.
No.
And it was another world.
I didn't have as much advanced research on Newfoundland at all. I just all I knew was Ray and Karen were waiting for me in St. John's. So the ferry is pulling into Port aux Basques, and I'm up on deck. It's really early in the morning, and I just think, I've left North America. This is not North America anymore. These tiny little houses, all bright colors. This is before vinyl siding, right?
Yeah.
Bright colors, all sprinkled around bare rock. It's just like, and that's always been my impression of Newfoundland in a way. It's kind of like a habitable Baffin Island or something. It's like it's got that extreme northern ruggedness, but it's just far enough south to be successfully inhabited,
Yeah. So I found a job within about less than 2 weeks. I had a job with an architect called Frank Noseworthy in downtown St. John's. And that was a fantastic place to work. So I'd like to compare with you, like sort of a cultural comparison. The culture of this office was really interesting because this man was a middle-aged architect, and he was one of those people who had learned, he never went to school, he learned through apprenticeship to other architects. And when Newfoundland joined Canada, all of those architects, they were grandfathered in. They're acceptable as professionals to the rest of the country because of their experience was considered valid. And he was one of those people. And the office had about maybe 10 people altogether, about 5 young architects. He gave each architect full control of one project. Like some offices, he would have made conceptual designs for everybody. Okay, you two do the working drawings, and you two do the site management, construction related work, and you help write specifications. He didn't do that. Each architect did all the steps of each job, one person. So it was an amazing experience. You got to know the whole thing from A to B, the whole process of making a building. And you dealt with you were representing the office with the client. So that culture included a lot of trust. And even I made a roof on one building that I wanted it really steep because I had started to learn that flat roofs, the wind would come in, they would leak. And he said, "It would look nicer, Joe, if it was more flat." And I said, "No, I want it steep." And he let me, what I wanted was what was going to happen. So he wasn't abdicating authority, but he was just relaxed about it and trusted people. And it was an amazingly nurturing place. Yeah. And he and I were friends for the rest of my stay in Newfoundland. When I would go back to Newfoundland sometimes, we'd look him up and get together. Yeah. So you had not the same experience, but similar in the sense of a kind of a cultural cooperative openness.
Yeah. Just hearing your story, it makes me wonder the degree to which the Newfoundland culture that we discovered in the 1970s actually went back to Britain, that the pre-Confederation and an older style of working, But anyway, drop that for now. I had just graduated from music school, in which I'd been immersed in, counterpoint and fugue and theory and analysis and arranging and piano and really seriously nose to the grindstone, loved it. But in the process, I kind of skipped part of my youth, you might say, that I was so serious about music that I missed the partying. So when I got to St. John's, I plugged in with friends and relatives of my initial hosts, who were all about 2 to 3 years older than me. So they graduated from university, already, and they all had their first jobs. Provincial government, a couple of them worked for the post office, one up at CBC, another guy was an airplane mechanic out at the airport, this kind of thing, right? One guy worked at the dockyard. So they all had decent jobs, but young. None of them were settled down or married or anything like that. And I guess the default behavior, the default way of living was to band together. So we would get a house together, and actually it ended up being 2 houses, a duplex. So band together, and it's cheaper for the rent, and we can share the cooking, as it turned out. We painted the whole place, and we rented a floor sander, and I sanded some of the floors, which is nuts. I mean, it was a rented property. We shouldn't be renovating the landlord's property for him, but we asked permission, and they said, "Oh yeah, good, go ahead." So, I mean, I've been renovating my whole life, but that was like the first job in Newfoundland was renovating the landlord's house for him. But I arrived with nothing, basically. I had some clothes, that was about it. What good am I? What can I do? Well, I did a music degree, but I immediately realized that it was useless. Like, there was no way that I was going to make any money from that music degree in St. John's, Newfoundland. Mm-hmm. But I'd been working 3 summers on farm in Antigonish prior to that, and I grew up on a sort of a abandoned farmland and been building forts my whole life since I was 8 years old. So I thought, I can build stuff. Yeah, what can you build? Can you build me a dresser or an armoire, clothes closet? Yeah, sure. What do you want? So there was a lumber yard just up the street from us, literally 50 feet. So I'd get a bit of advance money. I'd go up to the lumber yard and buy some wood, buy a couple of tools, starting off with a handsaw, I guess. I remember getting a coping saw for cutting out details, get a bit more money. The landlord had this wacky table saw arrangement that was attached to the base of an old sewing machine. And there were, the motor had exposed belt, exposed motor, and exposed blade, no real proper way to adjust the fence, it was just
dangerous.
Totally wacky. Anyway, he sold it to me for $15 or something. So I had enough equipment to start. But I mean, this wasn't just pure speculation, because the guys who had taken me in were going to make sure that I could survive. They were going to get me work. Individually.
They took care of you.
Yes. Individually, they were making good money. The guys working at the post office, they're all making decent money. So they could afford to give me enough work to make me squeak through, Mm-hmm. And one of them, his brother, was renovating his basement. So his brother would come down every day and pick me up and drive me up to his house in Wedgwood Park, and I would renovate his basement and learn how to do stuff. Like, I'd be sawing drywall with a handsaw, and this guy would say, "Paul, there's a better way of doing that. I'll show you." Wow. Just total on-the-job learning, and that was all okay because we were all in this together. There was a value. Everybody had a value aside from their ability to make a living. You were just valued, and they would have parties, and I'd be at their parties, and we just did everything together. Then we'd start burning wood in the fireplace. So we'd get, somebody had a chainsaw, somebody had a truck. We'd go out and cut trees, and we just did all that kind of stuff together.
Yeah, well, both of us ended up circulating in the downtown arts community circle, and I'd like to compare with you how that happened.
Right.
So I'll tell you quickly what happened to me.
Okay.
Joe, just before you get there, I have a question.
Yes.
Like the audience.
Yes.
For you. I just say, I listen to you when you make decision from big city, go to somewhere, almost like a foreign, a small place. You don't feel nervous. You feel quite relaxed. Somehow, you can survive there. You don't feel like, what if, do I have to give up this, that kind of a nervous. Mm-hmm. I mean, today, if I think about the younger generation, I find their attitude to choose what to do is a very, very kind of in the tight box. They have to think through everything.
Much more cautious.
Much more cautious.
Much more planning.
Yeah. Make sure I will make enough money, and then I can get married, and I'm able to have kids.
Oh.
And unless you have all kind of a security, I don't dare to move.
Mm-hmm.
But I find that you guys in the 70s or early 80s, you feel kind of a confidence. When you want to do something, you just do it. And also, I feel like you find a way to first able to survive, and then you have another layer of the goal of life is to do something meaningful. Yeah, what do you like? But these days, I find that their goal is to survive. Their goal is materially have a first layer, and then graduate, have a bigger house, and a better car, It's all based on how to survive. Their lack of another layer of something.
Yeah.
I find that that's a very different to hear.
Yeah.
If they think, at the beginning, I have to find some way to do something not related to, say, music as a composer, I will feel panic. But somehow
it worked out.
Yeah.
Well, as I mentioned before, I think one of the reasons for that is because we were spoiled in a way. Our parents had made a world that was quite wealthy in that sense, and there was work. The economy was good enough. That's one way. And maybe another reason is we were naive. We didn't have like long-term vision. We didn't have strategic planning. We're just kind of we're a bit like children, I think.
There was no pressure on me to do anything in particular. I said I wanted to do music, go for it, So you shouldn't do that, you're not going to make enough money. No, there was no pressure or,
From your parents?
Yeah, from my parents. In fact, my parents they're kind of like throwback to the pioneer days. They wanted to be very independent. They had their garden, they had lived 5/8 of a mile from the highway, They never plowed the driveway in the wintertime. We'd pull a sled in there. It was all about kind of doing things the old-fashioned way. My mother would pump water into big pans for doing laundry in the back kitchen in the wintertime. It was all really ancient technology. That's probably me. Excuse me.
Oh, okay. Pause.
Yeah. It's